Hello, this is Joshua for Frost Dragon Designs, and today I'd like to talk to you about my Witch Knight hard enamel pin. Every month in 2023, I'll be releasing a new standalone RPG cat through my website. This month's design is the Witch Knight, so let's get into the design. So, a fantasy character archetype that I have always found interesting is the melee character who is also a caster. I know in a lot of RPGs, it's usually stronger to go either as a melee character or a caster, but I'm not really trying to match any specific game mechanics here. I'm just trying to make cool-looking kitty characters. So this kind of hybrid melee caster type character, you'll probably see more of these from me in the future just because I find them to be such an interesting concept. This one specifically is called the Witch Knight, so she is a witch first who happens to also be a knight. So the aesthetic that I was going for had to be witchy. That needed to be the first and foremost piece of the aesthetic, but I also needed the knight to shine through, and that was going to be done through her armor as well as her weapon. But I wanted the armor and weapon to have a witchy feel to them as well, because this isn't just a knight, this is a witch knight. So it would make sense that this character has enchanted their weapon and armor so that it has some supernatural properties to it. And I chose to show that with the weapon at first through this green flame. Now, I am aware that there is a D&D spell called Green Flame Blade, but this design was less about that and more about the fact that, when I think of the term witchfire, green or eerie blues kind of come to mind. And so I defaulted to green just because I like the way green fire looks. I have a very vivid memory of a high school chemistry class, a piece of wood that had been soaked in some sort of a copper solution being lit on fire and in a dark room, and the flame was an eerie green-blue color, and that imagery has stuck with me for quite some time. So shout out to all you high school chemistry teachers out there. You're making cool memories for kids every day. In the sketch, it looks like I gave her just sort of a normal two-handed sword, and when I was working on the design, I gave her a kind of like a forked blade design. Not very practical in real life, but it might be kind of cool in a fantasy setting. But that didn't quite work for me either, and eventually I stumbled across kind of like a giant two-handed scimitar type shape for her sword, and I think that worked really well. I also tried something that was kind of like a giant two-handed khopesh, but that didn't quite work for me either. It was a little too out of the norm for me for this particular design. I'm sure I will find a use for that later. But the scimitar really worked for me because the rest of the design is very European in nature, and giving her a weapon that looked like it's from a different region feels like it's almost like telegraphing the, hey, I've traveled, I went far and wide to gather my knowledge, and I just think that there's something interesting about that it lends to the character. It adds a bit of storytelling, because if we're in just a Eurocentric kind of setting, that's really going to stand out. That specific blade shape is not going to be like anything else that anyone else is wielding. You can see another interesting idea that I had would be to have chains kind of whipping off of her armor. I thought that would be kind of an interesting look. It would be kind of threatening feeling. It would also kind of have an unleashed or unbound kind of subtext to it, and kind of add a little bit of extra energy to the design itself. It didn't quite work for me for this design, but I've also definitely cataloged that one as here's an idea I want to use, and so that's an idea in search of a project in my sketchbook now. I felt like the design was still missing something though, so I finished it off by adding these kind of burning flames to her shoulders. It kind of tied in the flaming eye on her hat and the green flame of the blade itself. Overall, I'd say this is a very successful design. I'm very happy with how they look in person, and I hope that you enjoyed watching me create this. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. I'll be releasing a new video every week. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and have a great day.